In a world obsessed with filters and facades, the most powerful form of magnetism often lies in what we dare not reveal. What if the secret to becoming truly unforgettable isn't found in flawless perfection, but in the bold courage to be unapologetically real? Carl Jung, the master of the human psyche, revealed a profound truth. We aren't drawn to what looks flawless. We're captivated by what feels authentic. The 6 paradoxical traits of an unforgettable woman aren't what society has conditioned us to value. They don't live on the surface, but in plain sight, in the shadows we're told to conceal, in the intensity we're taught to tone down. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about releasing the woman you've always been beneath the layers, beneath the masks. The woman no one dares to lose isn't chasing the need to be irreplaceable, and that's exactly what makes her so. In a world spinning at a dizzying pace, there's something that never loses its meaning: the longing for genuine connection. All of us crave relationships that matter, bonds that don't crumble at the first crack or dissolve with passing time. But what makes a woman truly unforgettable? Not in some fleeting or surface-level way, but at the deepest, most unshakable level of the soul, what transforms her into a presence that lingers long after she's gone. Carl Jung, in his lifelong journey through the human psyche, left us clues about what really makes a person irresistible. It's never about conforming to appearances or checking boxes to meet external standards. It's something far more primal, more essential, a visceral energy that rises from deep within. Stay with this story, because once you see her, you'll see yourself differently. She's not unforgettable because she tries to be, but because she's whole, a power that seeks no spotlight, needs no validation. And today, we're diving into the 6 keys that unlock the essence of that woman, the woman no one wants to lose. The power of authenticity. From a young age, we're taught 1,000 rules about how we should be kind, be agreeable, avoid conflict, yield when necessary. But what happens when all those well-meaning lessons pull us away from who we truly are? Jung spoke of the repressed self, that sacred part of us we silence in order to belong. But true magnetism doesn't come from molding ourselves to fit in. It rises when we dare to show up without fear, without disguise. There's one trait that stands out in every unforgettable person: authenticity, the rare ability to be completely at peace with who you are, without pretending to be anything else. In a world drowning in artificial appearances, being genuine is nothing short of an act of bravery. And when a woman gives herself permission to be fully who she is, without shrinking in the face of judgment, she emits a confidence that simply can't be ignored. But let's be clear, authenticity doesn't mean being rigid or unchanging. It's not about saying, "This is who I am. Take it or leave it." It's about growing, but doing so from a place that's honest and true. Jung spoke of individuation, an inner journey of discovering, accepting, and transforming oneself. The unforgettable woman doesn't cling to a fixed version of who she was. She ventures fearlessly into every corner of her soul. She grows without losing her essence. She evolves without ever betraying her truth. Personal magnetism isn't something you can fake. It flows from a deep and unwavering bond with your own essence, from a confidence that doesn't rely on the approval of others. And that kind of confidence, it isn't arrogance, it's a quiet, grounded certainty, a knowing that you are enough, not because the world says so, but because you feel it deep down, without doubt. Jung said that whatever we suppress eventually controls us from the shadows. The unforgettable woman refuses to hide her flaws. She doesn't carry shame for her wounds. She acknowledges them. She integrates them. And then, she turns them into her strength. Every single connection we experience leaves a mark, even if it's small or fleeting. Some pass through us like whispers. Others remain like an echo that refuses to fade. The difference between a passing presence and one that imprints the soul isn't found in grand gestures or surface impressions. It's in the ability to awaken something real in another person. The difference between a fleeting presence and one that leaves a lasting imprint lies in the depth of impact. And this kind of depth isn't achieved through extravagant gestures. It's born from the rare ability to reach into something genuine, something real, within another person. Yet we're often taught to shy away from intensity, to avoid feeling too deeply, loving too hard, needing too much, or expressing too loudly. We're trained to contain ourselves, to shrink our emotions into acceptable limits. We're told to minimize our light so we don't make others uncomfortable. But in truth, what makes a woman unforgettable is her ability to feel not from drama or emotional chaos, but from a powerful and grounded connection to her own inner energy. Wholeness before love. Carl Jung spoke of the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine forces that live within every human soul. A woman who has balanced and integrated both within herself becomes whole. She doesn't look for others to complete her, because she already stands complete on her own. She doesn't seek external validation to feel valuable. She carries that worth within her. She doesn't beg for love, because she understands that the love she truly seeks outside must first live within her own being. And when a woman walks in that kind of certainty, when she moves with fullness rather than emptiness, her presence becomes magnetic, impossible to ignore. But this sense of wholeness doesn't mean she builds walls. It's not about becoming unreachable or shutting others out. The woman no one wants to lose isn't distant or emotionally cold. She knows how to open up without losing herself in the process. She knows how to give of herself without becoming blurred or erased. She knows how to love without needing her love to be constantly validated by someone else. And that's exactly what makes her unforgettable. Because in a world full of people who love from a place of need, there's nothing more rare than someone who knows how to love from a place of inner freedom. Embracing the shadow. When a woman has come to know herself, when she's explored her darkness and embraced her light, she becomes unpredictable. Not because she's erratic or unstable, but because she refuses to be boxed in. She doesn't define herself in anyone else's terms. She becomes the woman who surprises who can't be trapped in outdated routines or worn-out roles. She is ever evolving, always exploring. She is never finished because she, herself, is a world still unfolding. Jung spoke of the shadow, that hidden part of our psyche where we store what we fear, what we deny, the parts of ourselves we've been taught to reject. So many women live confined in limited versions of who they are, because they've learned to silence their desires, suppress their impulses, and muffle their truest voice. But the unforgettable woman, she doesn't run from her shadow. She confronts it. She embraces it. And through that brave embrace, she finds liberation. When a woman accepts her own complexity, when she stops fragmenting herself into socially acceptable pieces, she becomes a force of nature. She no longer needs to pretend. She no longer crams herself into molds that were never meant to contain her. Her authenticity becomes her greatest source of power. And that is precisely why no one wants to let her go. Because in any form, truth is addictive. Soul-level connection. The strongest form of attraction doesn't come from beauty or perfection. It rises from depth. Jung said that real relationships don't exist between masks. They exist between souls. The woman no one wants to lose is someone you can sit beside in silence without feeling awkward. Someone who doesn't avoid difficult conversations, who isn't afraid to dive into the dark corners of the soul, even when she's not sure what she might uncover there. There's a mystique in a woman who truly knows herself. She doesn't need to announce her worth. She doesn't chase validation. Her sense of security comes from a place so deep. Most people never even reach it within themselves. And that sense of security isn't arrogance. It's not superiority. It's the calm of someone who's dared to face herself and didn't turn away. Jung once said that most people are trapped in masks, living out roles designed by society. But the woman no one forgets is the one who broke free from those roles. She chose to simply be without apologies. True beauty doesn't reside in flawlessness. It's found in authenticity. In a world where so many pretend, where appearances are valued more than substance, a woman who's unafraid to reveal her truth becomes magnetic by nature. She doesn't contort herself to fit into tired molds. She doesn't twist her shape to please anyone. She never trades her essence just to be accepted. Her entire presence becomes a declaration of freedom, and that freedom doesn't create distance. It builds bridges. Jung also spoke of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming one's truest self. The unforgettable woman has walked that path. She's learned to be alone without feeling lonely. She doesn't fear companionship, but she doesn't chase it either. She understands that true partnership isn't an escape. It's the meeting of two complete beings, standing side by side. And when a woman stops seeking love from a place of emptiness, when she begins to love from a place of internal abundance, something profound shifts. She no longer needs to prove her worth. She no longer begs to be chosen. She no longer competes for attention. And in that exact moment, when she no longer needs to be desired, she becomes truly irresistible. Because real magnetism never grows from need. It only grows from wholeness. The wise woman's freedom. The woman no one wants to lose is the one who makes her choices from a place of freedom, not out of fear. Carl Jung said that the collective unconscious is filled with archetypes that shape how we relate to each other. And among the most powerful of them all is the archetype of the wise woman. She is the one who has embraced all aspects of herself and who no longer fears either her light or her darkness. This woman is not the most agreeable, not the one who seeks approval, not the one who avoids discomfort just to keep the peace. She is the one who awakens something deep inside others, the kind of woman no one can simply categorize or forget. Her magnetism isn't built on manipulation or charm. It's rooted in the truth of who she is. She doesn't try to transform others, yet her presence inevitably does. Not because she forces anything, but because the sheer intensity of her energy leaves a mark that can't be erased. She doesn't try to be liked. And paradoxically, that makes her even more desirable. She doesn't cling to anyone. But when she walks away, her absence carves out a void that's impossible to fill. This woman doesn't shy away from intensity. She's not afraid of feeling deeply. She doesn't hide her vulnerability. She knows that being vulnerable isn't weakness. It's one of the truest expressions of strength. She doesn't put up emotional walls. She doesn't pretend to be indifferent. She understands that love, friendship, and genuine connection all require courage. And it's that exact courage that makes her unforgettable. The difference between someone who's easily forgotten and someone who leaves a lifelong impression isn't in what they do or what they say. but in what they awaken in others. The woman no one wants to lose is the one who touches what can't be seen. She stirs invisible threads. She leaves a trace that time can't erase. Her presence is never shallow or fleeting, because it's not anchored in the superficial. It's grounded in the energy she brings, in the quiet but unmistakable depth that surrounds her. She isn't just someone who walks beside you. She is someone who transforms you, someone who shifts the way you see the world. Jung spoke of the need to integrate every part of our being, even those pieces society told us to hide. The unforgettable woman is not perfect, nor does she try to be. She embraces her contradictions. She owns her shadows. She doesn't shrink herself to fit someone else's limited idea of womanhood. She knows there is strength in tenderness, and just as much in determination. She understands there is power in gentleness, and beauty in resilience. She doesn't allow herself to be defined by a single trait, because she is not a fragment. She is a universe in her own right. And when a woman stops trying to be good in the conventional sense, and starts choosing authenticity instead, something shifts in her. It shows in her eyes, in her steps, in the way she speaks. She no longer needs constant validation. She no longer fears being misunderstood. She no longer needs to be told she's enough because she already knows it. And that kind of security can't be forced. It's not something you wear on the outside. It's something that radiates from within. Something others sense without needing explanation. But this inner peace doesn't come from arrogance. The woman no one wants to lose doesn't think she's better than anyone else. She simply learned how to value herself without constantly comparing herself to others. Her self-worth isn't built on attention, but on the quiet, sustaining love she's cultivated within herself. And it's precisely for this reason that she doesn't fear being alone. She doesn't cling to relationships that drain her. She doesn't beg for affection where none exists. This woman isn't unforgettable because she tries to be. She doesn't follow rules of seduction. She doesn't play games or use tactics. She doesn't act aloof just to seem more desirable. She's unforgettable because her energy is one of a kind, because her essence isn't something that can be replicated. She doesn't mold herself to fit in. She belongs only to herself. When she's in the room, you feel it. And when she's gone, her absence lingers heavily. But the most important truth is this. She doesn't try to be the woman no one wants to lose. She doesn't live her life hoping to leave a legacy. She doesn't obsess over being remembered. She simply lives with depth, with presence, and with a love for herself that isn't dependent on anyone else. And paradoxically, that is what makes her unforgettable. There is a quiet but profound difference between a woman who is simply present and a woman who fully exists. The former follows the script. She adapts to others. She meets expectations. But the latter, she is a force all her own. Someone not defined by the projections of others, but by the truth she carries within. Carl Jung described the path of individuation as a journey toward wholeness, toward becoming your truest self. And it is a journey that not everyone has the courage to take. The woman no one wants to lose is the one who has walked that path, who has confronted her shadows and discovered her own light. She isn't flawless, but she has learned how to embrace every facet of herself, without fear and without shame. One of the most compelling traits shared by women like her is their rare ability to connect not through surface-level interaction, not through neediness or dependency, but through something far more authentic. No impini, imi ins tami. Their connection with others is rooted in the deep bond they've cultivated with themselves. They don't try to fill emotional gaps with temporary company. They aren't afraid of silence. They don't crave constant validation to feel complete. In a world addicted to distraction, where few truly pause to listen, a woman who knows how to be fully present, who meets your eyes with intention, who speaks with weight and meaning, becomes unforgettable. But it's not only about how she connects with people, it's about how she connects with life itself. There's a vibrant force within a woman who lives with a sense of purpose, a fire in someone who has discovered something that deeply moves her, that compels her to rise above the ordinary. It doesn't need to be something the world calls great. It's not about fame or external acknowledgement. It might be an art, a passion, or a quiet personal pursuit. What makes her magnetic is that she refuses to live on autopilot. She doesn't settle for simply existing. Her enthusiasm, her focus, and her love for what she does, all of it becomes contagious. People around her feel it. They're moved by it. And that creates a connection that's difficult to break. Jung spoke of the inner goddess archetype, that part of the feminine psyche brimming with wisdom, intuition, and creative fire. The woman no one wants to lose has awakened that power within herself. That doesn't mean she's unshakable. It doesn't mean she's immune to fear or doubt. It means she's learned to trust her intuition. She knows how to listen to her inner voice instead of letting it be drowned out by outside noise. She doesn't make decisions out of fear. She doesn't let others manipulate her. She won't allow herself to be carried by circumstances that don't reflect her truth. Her life is a direct expression of who she really is, not a mirror of what others expect her to be. Emotional independence is another quality that defines her. She doesn't mistake love for ownership. She knows the difference between attention and real affection. She doesn't hold on to what isn't truly hers. She never tries to keep someone who clearly doesn't want to stay, because she understands a fundamental truth that relationships must remain free, that real love can't be forced or demanded. Her confidence doesn't depend on being chosen by others. It lives in the knowledge that she has the power to choose. She doesn't fear losing people because she knows the only truly irreplaceable thing is her own essence. And her confidence doesn't come from detachment or indifference. Quite the opposite. The woman no one wants to lose is profoundly passionate. She feels deeply. She loves with her whole being. But she does so from a place of fullness, not from lack. She doesn't pretend to be hard to reach just to provoke interest. She has no need to manipulate in order to hold someone's attention. It's her honesty, her radical transparency, that makes her so captivating. She's not a projection or a fantasy made to please. She is real with everything that implies. There's a liberation in the way she chooses to live. She doesn't wait for permission to be who she is. She doesn't wear masks. She doesn't suppress her nature to fit into outdated templates. Her presence might unsettle those not ready to confront their own truth. But for those who seek something real, she becomes a beacon, because deep down, we all crave authenticity, something that cuts through the noise and reaches the core. And when a woman becomes that truth, when she lives it without apology, she becomes unforgettable. But her worth isn't defined by how much admiration she stirs in others. She isn't unforgettable because others remember her. She's unforgettable because she remembers herself. Her strength doesn't come from opinions. It grows from the deep and steady knowing that her life holds meaning. She doesn't live for approval. Her self-worth isn't tied to how many people desire her. She loves herself not because she's flawless, but because she's learned to respect and accept every layer of who she is, and that self-respect, that is one of the most powerful gifts she gives to those around her. There is something undeniable about the presence of a woman who has allowed herself to evolve without fearing the unknown. She isn't someone who passed through life blindly. She's someone who looked straight into her contradictions and allowed every experience to transform her without ever losing her essence. Carl Jung spoke of the importance of integrating all parts of the psyche, not rejecting what makes us uncomfortable, but recognizing it, understanding it, and giving it a rightful place within the fullness of who we are. The woman no one wants to lose is not the one who projects an image of perfection or inaccessibility. She is the one who has learned to live with sincerity, embracing both her brilliance and her shadows. She doesn't seek recognition at all costs, nor does she rely on grand displays to make an impression. Her allure lies in the quiet subtlety of her presence, in the way she moves through life with a kind of confidence that needs no announcement. She doesn't have to prove anything. She isn't trying to convince anyone of her worth. Her very existence is already its own declaration. And this sense of certainty isn't a facade. It's not a shield meant to hide fear or insecurity. It is the result of deep, consistent inner work, the outcome of having explored herself with radical honesty. The difference between someone who merely adapts to their surroundings and someone who truly shapes their world doesn't lie in force or control, but in the clarity and integrity with which they express themselves. The unforgettable woman is not the one who demands attention. She's not the loudest voice in the room. She is the one who, without trying, leaves a mark that lingers. Not because she aims to, but because her authenticity is impossible to mistake. Self-knowledge gives her an edge that few possess, the ability to make decisions from awareness, rather than from habit or fear. Jung said most people live trapped in unconscious loops, repeating patterns they never realize. But this woman has awakened. She's taken hold of her narrative. She doesn't let herself be swept along by fate. She creates her own. Her choices are not motivated by the pressure to conform. They align with the truth of who she is. And this shift, this quiet alignment, radically transforms the way she connects with others. She doesn't chase shallow relationships to fill a void. She doesn't cling to ties that don't nourish her. She's not afraid of solitude because she's learned to cherish her own company. Her presence doesn't overwhelm or drain others. Instead, it uplifts. And that's why people are drawn to her, to that calm, centered energy that can only come from someone at peace with herself. But being self-sufficient doesn't make her closed off. Her independence doesn't equal emotional distance. She's warm, deeply warm. But her warmth isn't about pleasing or submission. Her love is unbound, free from manipulation or control. She doesn't try to dominate, nor does she allow herself to be dominated. She gives from a place of fullness. And when she chooses to be with someone, it is never out of need, but from true and conscious choice. That's part of what makes her presence unforgettable. Because when she offers herself, she does so wholeheartedly. She's not memorable because she fits a flawless mold. She's unforgettable because she's real. In a world where authenticity is becoming rare. She doesn't present a filtered version of who she is. She's not afraid of revealing her humanity, her contradictions, her ability to change her mind and evolve. She doesn't stay frozen in one identity. She moves with life fluid, ever adapting, yet always rooted in her essence. Her strength lies in this balance, to transform without betraying herself, to grow without losing what makes her who she is. And it's this interplay of power and vulnerability that makes her so captivating. She doesn't protect herself behind a hardened shell, but she isn't mistaken for someone fragile either. She knows when to open and when to draw boundaries. She knows when to give and when to step away. She's not playing a game, but she also isn't someone you can possess with ease. Her love isn't something to be demanded or begged for. It's earned through time, through presence, through reciprocity. Those who've truly known her understand to lose her is to lose something irreplaceable. She's not the kind of woman you can fully understand at a glance. She isn't built for those seeking the easy, the obvious, or the surface level. There's something in the way she exists that raises questions, that leaves you sensing there's always more waiting to be uncovered. She doesn't reveal everything at once, not because she plays games, but because her depth can't be captured in a first impression. Her mind, her way of seeing, her movement through the world, all carry layers that can't be grasped without time. To truly know her requires patience. To understand her means letting go of the superficial. But she's not closed off. She doesn't hide herself, and she doesn't build walls just to keep people out. The truth is, her essence simply isn't meant for everyone. She doesn't strive to be universally liked. She doesn't contort herself to match expectations. She refuses to be molded by others' desires. She guards her energy and doesn't let it be drained by those who can't see its value. She's not for those who seek momentary thrills, not for those who fear depth. And that is precisely why her impact cuts so deep. Because when she gives herself, she does so with her whole heart. She's not one of those who pretends not to care. She doesn't play hard to get. She doesn't need to manufacture value through tactics, because her value lives not in others' perception, but in the grounded awareness she has of herself. She doesn't move through life to provoke obsession, nor does she concern herself with feeding others' egos. She simply is without disguises, without masks, and without the exhausting need to prove anything. Becoming unforgettable by not trying. Her sense of security doesn't mean she's free from doubts or immune to moments of vulnerability, but what sets her apart is that she refuses to let those moments define her. She doesn't run from her thoughts. She doesn't avoid her emotions. She doesn't need someone else to save her from her silences. She turns inward and finds answers there. The same answers so many are desperately searching for outside themselves. She knows her peace isn't rooted in anyone else, and that's why she never begs for company. She doesn't cling to what was never truly hers. She has no fear in releasing what no longer brings value. When she enters a room, you feel her presence, not because she demands attention, but because her energy carries its own natural gravity. There's something in the way she inhabits space, in her calm movements, in the quiet certainty she exudes, that makes it nearly impossible to overlook her. She never needs to raise her voice to be heard. Much, he can't. She doesn't exaggerate to be noticed. Her very being is enough to make a lasting impact. She's unforgettable, not because she resembles anyone else, but precisely because she doesn't. She doesn't pretend to be someone she's not. She doesn't conform to a template. She doesn't seek validation or squeeze herself into the expectations of others. Her authenticity is an act of quiet defiance in a world that constantly pressures us to be copies of something else. She doesn't dissolve into the crowd. She doesn't lose herself trying to be accepted. She holds steady in her own truth, even when it makes others uncomfortable, even when it means standing alone, and because her sincerity runs so deep. The relationships she builds are never shallow. She's not someone who lets just anyone into her inner world. She discerns who's passing through and who is truly worth it. She doesn't settle for emotional leftovers. She doesn't stay in relationships that don't expand her. And far from making her distant, this discernment makes every connection with her a transformative experience. She stands out without trying, not because she seeks the spotlight, but because her essence simply can't be hidden. She doesn't push herself onto others, but she's not someone easily forgotten. Her energy leaves a mark, one that lingers. Her authenticity is the sum of everything she's lived through. The choices she's made, the battles she's faced and won. She hasn't settled for what life handed her. She carved her own path. She chose what to nourish in herself and what to release. She doesn't follow a script written by someone else. She refuses to be shaped by external standards. Her identity isn't built on blending in. It's anchored in the deep relationship she has with herself. She's learned how to hear her own voice, even in a world that's always shouting. She trusts her intuition without needing anyone to affirm it. Her security isn't arrogance. It's not empty pride. It's the hard-earned result of a long journey toward self-understanding. She no longer needs to prove herself because she already knows who she is. In love, she doesn't play games. She doesn't let others play games with her. She's not a chaser. She's not a runner. She doesn't attach herself to illusions or fall for hollow promises. Her love runs deep, but it's not handed to just anyone. She knows how to separate those who value her energy from those who only want to consume it. She's not fooled by sweet talk. She's not swayed by fleeting moments. Her connection with someone doesn't come from desperation. It comes from a clear, grounded decision to share her life with someone who meets her where she stands. The intensity in her gaze, the weight behind her words, the way she gives herself when she feels safe. All of it proves she doesn't stay on the surface. She doesn't fear deep emotion. She doesn't build walls just to avoid being hurt. She allows herself to be vulnerable, but never at the expense of her power. She's not afraid of love, but she doesn't put it on a pedestal either. She refuses to settle for anything less than what she knows she's worthy of. And for those who lose her, there's an undeniable sense that they've lost something irreplaceable. She's unafraid of solitude because she sees it not as emptiness, but as a sacred space for growth. She enjoys her own company. She feels at peace in her own presence. She doesn't search for distractions to escape her thoughts. She faces them, dissects them, learns from them. Her inner world is vast. So much so that she never feels the need to look outside for what she already possesses within. And because of this, when she chooses to share her time with someone, she shows up completely. She doesn't offer fragments of herself. She doesn't hold back out of fear of rejection. She reveals herself fully without edits, without filters. Her life, the way she lives it, is a declaration. She doesn't allow fear to keep her small. She doesn't let uncertainty paralyze her. She knows growth demands stepping beyond comfort. She understands that losses bring wisdom, and failures bring clarity. She lets go of what no longer supports her. She doesn't carry more than what serves her. Her lightness isn't emptiness, it's freedom. Freedom rooted in knowing who she is. She doesn't need to control every moment of her life to feel at peace. When she speaks, her words have weight. She speaks with purpose, not to fill silence. Her conversations don't echo what's trendy or rehearsed. They invite others to see from a new angle. Her mind is in motion, always learning, always questioning, always expanding. She doesn't stay stuck in fixed beliefs. She's not tied to outdated ideas for comfort's sake. Her curiosity is endless. Her hunger to understand is boundless. That's what makes her a rare and captivating presence. Someone with whom time never feels wasted. Her presence never overwhelms with noise or performance. She doesn't chase approval. She doesn't squeeze herself into society's molds. Her authenticity speaks for her. And that's why people are drawn to her essence. There's nothing artificial about her, nothing that conforms to an image. The way she sees the world isn't built from what others expect. It rises from her own understanding of herself and of the world around her. When someone enters her life, they don't meet a watered-down version of who she is. She doesn't shrink to please. She doesn't bend to meet assumptions. She presents herself fully, complex, layered, intense. Her love isn't conditional or passive, but she doesn't offer it carelessly. Not everyone is invited into her sacred interior. She's learned to protect her energy, to guard it from those who fail to honor it. Her view on love isn't naive, but it's not jaded either. She doesn't romanticize pain, but she doesn't run from it either. She doesn't need to fill empty spaces with people. Her completeness comes from within. She doesn't cling to what's stagnant. She doesn't force what won't flow. If someone remains in her life, it's because she has consciously chosen them, not because she needs them. And when she senses something is no longer contributing to her growth, she knows how to let it go, without bitterness, without blame, and without fear. The intensity with which she lives each experience doesn't mean she allows herself to be swept away by emotion without control. Quite the opposite, she has learned to identify what she feels, to honor it without being ruled by it. She listens to her emotions, but never lets them dictate her every move. She doesn't repress what stirs within her, but she also doesn't allow her feelings to take the reins. Her balance doesn't come from indifference. It comes from awareness. She gives herself permission to feel, yet she never loses herself in the feeling. To someone looking in from the outside, she may seem like an enigma, not because she's trying to be mysterious, but because her depth isn't something that can be grasped immediately. She can't be easily read, not because she hides herself, but because her essence cannot be captured in a few quick impressions. There are layers in her layers that reveal themselves only with time, with trust, with true connection. Those fortunate enough to know her beneath the surface understand her worth doesn't lie in what she projects. It lives in the strength of her character and in the alignment between her words and her life. When she walks into a room, the energy shifts. Not because she demands it, but because her presence radiates without needing spectacle. She isn't someone who fights to be noticed, but she's felt. She doesn't seek attention, yet it finds her without her asking. It's not effort, it's essence. What she is simply cannot go unseen. Her confidence is quiet. Her charisma isn't fabricated. Those around her feel it, even if they can't always explain it. Her strength doesn't isolate her. She isn't cold or unreachable. She doesn't shut herself off from life or love. But she also doesn't give herself away carelessly to those who haven't earned the right to witness her truth. She doesn't rush into trust, not out of fear, but out of wisdom, because she knows her energy isn't for everyone. Her vulnerability is sacred, and she offers it only to those who've shown they can honor it. What sets her apart is that she doesn't need to be fully understood. She doesn't chase explanations. She doesn't seek to justify who she is. She doesn't suffer when people fail to recognize her worth. She understands that not everyone is ready to, and that knowledge brings her peace. Her path isn't drawn by public opinion. It's guided by internal clarity. As she moves forward through life, She becomes more grounded in herself, more in command of her own destiny. She doesn't let herself be trapped by what's behind her. She doesn't cling to what no longer aligns with her growth. She knows when it's time to close a chapter, when to shift direction, when to transform completely. She doesn't stay where growth has stopped. She doesn't hold on to relationships that drain her. Her instinct tells her when to move on, and she listens without hesitation. Her very presence is a quiet reminder that true strength isn't about domination. It's about standing in your own fullness without needing anything external to validate it. She doesn't crave control. She doesn't want to be followed. She has no hunger to be idolized. And yet people can't help but admire her. The truly unforgettable woman isn't loud or performative. She is a quiet revolution in a world addicted to image. She didn't arrive at this place by strategizing. She arrived by having the courage to integrate every part of herself, her darkness and her light. Jung understood this, and deep within, we recognize it too, that authentic presence creates a kind of gravitational pull no curated illusion can compete with. The paradox is undeniable. By releasing the desperate need to be valued by others, she becomes invaluable. By giving up the chase to be irreplaceable, she becomes exactly that. Her strength comes not from dominance, but from completeness, the rare bravery to exist without apology or performance. She reminds us of what we most long for, not perfection, but truth. And in a world drowning in well-crafted illusion, there is nothing more magnetic than a woman who has made peace with her reality, who doesn't offer a reflection of what others want to see, but instead gives the revolutionary gift of being fully, unapologetically human. This is not the end of her path. It is only the beginning of living without masks, of loving without conditions, and of leaving a mark, not because she tried, but because she simply, powerfully was. If her story stirred something in you, don't keep it quiet. Share your truth in the comments. And if you're walking this path too, subscribe. We're not meant to do this alone.